Okay, picture the first day of year one. For a lot of us, that phrase, it just triggers this very specific image.
Little desks in rows.
Exactly. Little desks, a teacher at a whiteboard, maybe some silent reading time. There's this cultural reflex to see year one as the moment real school starts.
Right. The sandpit is officially closed. The toys are put away. Now it's time to work.
And we tend to think that if a child isn't reading by, say, week two, or they can't sit still for an hour, then something is wrong. But I've been going through this stack of research we have today.
It's a pretty big stack.
It is. We've got curriculum guides from Western Australia, reports from the American Academy of Pediatrics, some really deep dives into brain science from Harvard, and that whole traditional idea. It's actually backwards.
It really is. I mean, the sources are pretty emphatic about it if we focus only on academics. You know, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic.
We're focusing on the wrong thing.
We're obsessing over the cargo while completely ignoring the engine.
The engine being the thing that actually makes learning happen.
Precisely. So today we're diving into the non-academic skills. Specifically, we're going to look at attention, flexibility, and emotional regulation.
And the data says these things are more important.
Statistically, yes. They're more predictive of long-term success than whether a 6-year-old can write a perfect sentence on day one.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really look under the hood of a year one learner. We need to get what's happening, biologically and developmentally.
And to do that, we have to start with a concept that just pops up everywhere in these sources: air traffic control.
Air traffic control, okay.
It's the core analogy for this. Imagine a really busy airport. You've got planes taking off, planes landing, luggage carts weaving around, fuel trucks. It's just this incredibly complex, dynamic environment.
And if there's no one in the tower managing all that traffic?
You have a disaster, a crash. In the brain, that management system is called executive function.
Okay.
It's a set of mental processes that let us filter out distractions, prioritize things, and switch gears when the plan changes.
And the really critical insight from the Harvard research is that we're not born with this control tower fully staffed, are we?
Not at all. We're born with the potential to build it, but the system itself, it has to be wired through experience.
So a 6-year-old's tower is still under construction.
Heavy construction. So when you see a kid in year one who's struggling to sit still, or who forgets an instruction like 10 seconds after you gave it, it's usually not a defiance issue.
It's an air traffic control issue.
It's a bandwidth issue. The tower is just overwhelmed. There are too many planes on the runway.
So let's break that down, because executive function can feel like a bit of a buzzword. If I'm a parent or a teacher, what am I actually looking for in a kid?
The literature points to 3 main pillars, especially for year one. The first one is working memory.
Okay, working memory.
Think of it like a mental workspace. It's the ability to hold information in your mind and sort of move it around for short time.
So the classic example of go get your shoes.
It's usually a bit more complex, like go upstairs, get your shoes from the closet, and put them by the front door.
Right.
To do that, the child has to hold the image of the shoes, the location of the closet, and the final destination, all at the same time while walking upstairs and, ignoring the dog.
It's asking a lot of their brain.
It is. And if they come back with the toy and no shoes, it's not always because they were ignoring you. It's often because the information literally just dropped out of their working memory.
Okay, so that's one pillar. What's the second?
The second is inhibitory control.
Which sounds a bit like just stopping yourself.
In a way, yeah. It's the ability to manage your thoughts and impulses. It's resisting the urge to grab a toy someone else is using. It's pausing to think before you act.
The filter.
The filter and the brakes, exactly. And the third pillar is mental flexibility. This is all about shifting gears.
So if your Lego tower falls over...
Right. Do you have the cognitive flexibility to pivot and try a new way? Or do you just get stuck in that frustration?
This all leads straight into the misconceptions about school readiness, doesn't it? I was looking at some survey data in our sources, and there's this huge gap between what parents think readiness is versus what the science says it is.
It's that cargo versus engine problem again. Parents, understandably, focus on the cargo. Does my child know the alphabet? Can they count to 100?
But the curriculum guides, the readiness reports, they're not really prioritizing those things.
No, they're prioritizing the engine. The research shows that emotional regulation and social skills are much stronger predictors of success. For example, can the child listen to a short instruction, maybe just 1 or 2 steps?
It sounds like a pretty low bar, 1 or 2 steps.
It's harder than you think in a busy room. Or can they stay with a task for 5 or 10 minutes with support? That part's key. We expect independent focus way too early.
And what about when they get something wrong?
That's the crucial one. How do they handle not knowing, the resilience factor? Does the child just sort of crumble and avoid the task? Or do they ask for help? That ability to recover from frustration is a massive indicator of a healthy executive function.
So a child who doesn't know their letters but is willing to keep trying is actually in a better spot.
Much better. Better than a child who knows all the letters but falls apart when they hit a word they don't know.
I found something else in the sources about literacy that was really surprising. We all assume year one is the big reading year,
Mm-hmm.
but the Western Australian curriculum documents actually prioritize oral language. So speaking and listening over formal reading at the start.
Because you can't read what you can't understand. It's that simple. Oral language is the absolute bedrock of literacy.
So the neural pathways for reading are built on top of the ones for speech.
Exactly. If a child can't tell you a story about their weekend, or explain why they feel sad, or listen to a story and answer a question about it, they're going to have a really hard time decoding text.
So the conversation itself
Hmm.
is the curriculum.
It's the foundation. If you skip that to rush into flashcards, you're basically building a house on sand.
Which brings us to, well, how do we build these skills? If it's not worksheets, what is it? The American Academy of Pediatrics report was very clear on this, but it's a word that makes some people a little nervous: play.
It does make people nervous because we've created this false choice between play and learning.
We see play as a break from learning.
But the neuroscience sources are explicit. Play is the mechanism of brain building. It creates what they call the pro-social brain.
The report even mentioned some animal studies to show the biological impact.
Yeah, the rat studies. And obviously, kids aren't rats, but the mammalian brain has some similar structures. And in these studies, rats that were deprived of play,
What happened?
they ended up with immature prefrontal cortices.
And that's the part of the brain that handles decision-making, the social stuff we were just talking about.
Exactly. Without play, the physical structure of the brain just didn't develop the complexity it needed. They couldn't manage their aggression or fear. The takeaway is that play literally refines the brain's architecture.
But we should be specific here. The sources talk about guided play or constrained tinkering. This isn't just, sending the kids out into the yard for 6 hours.
No, although free play is important too. Guided play is where the adult shapes the environment or the interaction to scaffold the learning. It operates in what's called the zone of proximal development,
The sweet spot.
the sweet spot, the gap between what a child can do all by themselves and what they can do with a little bit of help. And the classic interaction here is something called serve and return.
Like a game of tennis.
Exactly like tennis.
Okay, yeah.
The child serves, maybe by babbling or pointing at something or asking a question.
Okay.
If the adult ignores it, the ball just drops. The connection isn't made. But if the adult returns the serve.
By answering the question or naming the object.
Yes. Or joining the game. Then those neural connections get stronger. They get locked in.
Let's use a concrete example, because the project-based learning part of the sources had this great one, the animal enclosure.
Oh, that's a perfect one. It really shows how play just naturally covers the academics.
Okay, so a child is building a zoo for their toy animals. To an outsider, it just looks like they're messing around with blocks. But what's really happening?
Well, start with literacy. A zoo needs signs, right? You talk about the animals. This lion is fierce. You might try to write labels for them. That's vocabulary, it's phonics, all in a context that matters to them.
And numeracy.
Math.
You've got to measure the fence. Is this fence high enough for the giraffe? You're counting the animals. Do we have more zebras or elephants? That's volume, spatial reasoning, all of it.
Then there's science.
You're talking about habitats. Does the polar bear live in the sand? No, it needs ice. That's biology.
And finally, the social and emotional stuff. Well, if you're building with someone else, you're negotiating. I want the tower here. No, it goes there. You're problem solving when the walls fall down. You're regulating frustration.
So that one single activity building a zoo hits English, math, science, and social emotional skills all at once.
And because the child chose it, because they're invested, they are the air traffic controller of that project. Their attention span is naturally longer. They might work on that zoo for 45 minutes where a worksheet would lose them in 5.
This feels really significant for any parents listening, especially homeschool families. The takeaway seems to be you don't need to recreate a classroom at home.
You absolutely do not. In fact, the homeschool guides in the stack say you shouldn't even try. The home environment has its own unique, often richer opportunities for this kind of lab work.
The sources list things like cooking, shopping, gardening.
Think about cooking with a child. It is a massive executive function workout. You have to follow steps in order, that's working memory. You have to measure ingredients, that's math. You see ingredients change form, that's chemistry.
And if you spill the milk.
Exactly. If you spill the milk or burn the toast, you are practicing emotional regulation in a very real-world setting.
Okay, so that's the lab. But how do we assess it? We're so conditioned to look for a test score or a finished worksheet to prove learning happened.
The sources remind us that in year one in foundation, assessment is mainly through observation. It's not about a written exam, it's about watching the process.
And what should we be looking for?
You look for the behaviors. How does the child react when the block tower falls? Do they notice patterns? Do they ask a question when they're confused? Those are the signs that the engine is running smoothly.
There's a serious caveat here, though, about the environment. We have to talk about the research on toxic stress.
Yes, this is sort of the physiological dark side to the air traffic control analogy.
So what happens to the control tower under toxic stress?
It just shuts down. If a child is in a state of high anxiety or chronic fear, the brain diverts all its resources to survival. Learning pathways get put on hold. The development of executive function is literally disrupted because the brain is busy managing a threat.
So one of the most powerful educational tools is just a feeling of safety.
It's the relationship. The research is clear. A calm, responsive relationship acts as a buffer against that stress. It supports learning more than any app or any flashcard ever could.
Let's pivot to what this all means for year one expectations. Because even if you understand all this, parents still worry. They worry their child is behind.
It's the number one anxiety.
So let's be really clear about the transition from pre-primary or foundation into year one. What's the actual difference?
The biggest change, according to the curriculum docs, is structure, not difficulty. It's not this huge leap in content. The key phrase that kept popping up was consolidation and application.
Consolidation.
Yeah.
Firming up what's already there.
Exactly, taking the ideas they explored in play and starting to use them a bit more intentionally. But let's bust some specific myths here. Let's start with English.
The fear is they should be reading chapter books by Christmas.
The reality is that they're expected to enjoy stories, to understand that print has meaning, and to attempt writing. That word attempt is so important.
So even if it's just scribbles or random letters.
That is success. It's about the process and confidence, not perfect fluency at this stage.
What about math?
It's all about number sense. It is not about mental arithmetic or memorizing times tables. It's about spotting patterns, understanding more versus less, and using physical things to solve problems.
So counting on their fingers or using blocks isn't a bad habit.
No. That is the curriculum. They're grounding an abstract idea in physical reality.
And science.
It's just inquiry. It's asking what will happen if. It's observing change. It's not writing a formal lab report.
So this whole child approach really argues that a kid who feels safe to try something, who asks for help, who can explain their thinking, that child is ready, even if they don't know all their letters yet.
That child has the learning to learn skills. They have a functioning engine, the cargo, the letters, the numbers, the facts that can be loaded on any time. But you can't load cargo onto a plane that has no engine.
That's a perfect summary. We've talked about the executive function engine, plays the construction site, and the home as a laboratory.
And we've reframed year one not as some scary cliff you fall off, but as a bridge you walk across.
So, zooming out.
Yeah.
Why does all this matter in the long run? Why should we care so much about executive function in a 6-year-old?
Because of the world they're growing into. In a 21st century economy, the ability to just memorize facts and follow a procedure, it's becoming less valuable. We have computers for that.
Right. We need the skills that computers don't have.
We need innovators, problem solvers. We need people who can collaborate, who can navigate complex social situations and regulate their own attention in a world designed to distract them. Those skills are the true predictors of adult competence.
It's just so interesting that we spend all this time worrying if our kids are academic enough, but the skills that actually make a great scientist or a great leader are these non-academic ones we've been talking about.
They're the foundation of really human agency.
I want to leave everyone with a thought from the sources that really, it just stopped me in my tracks. We are always asking, is my child ready for school? We check their reading, their counting.
We check the cargo.
Right. But the sources ask us to flip that question around. To ask, is the environment ready to support what the child actually is? If we stop obsessing over the cargo of facts and instead prioritize building that air traffic control system, what kind of learner might we create in the long run?
That's the real question.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
It was a pleasure.